and in brutal Baltic art English.
Yes.
Okay, so about the introduction. So, Tanel Rander, you are the curator of the exhibition Promised Light, and the current installation here is Jevgeni Zolotkos' Space, the first one in a presumable series. I think the first question one is ought to ask, because the Promised Light exhibition is part of Tartu Light Festival, which actually first of all deals with city lighting and kind of like literary lighting as a problem in open space, public space. And you curated the exhibition Promised Light into the festival program, but in a, it's still. Let's say your exhibition doesn't deal with lightning things, and so how did you choose that your approach? And whilst we are here in part of the exhibition that is, that has only one artist, Jevgeni Zolotkos, the rest we will come later. Why did you? Because you previously said Jevgeni was the first artist you chose for the exhibition. Why did you choose him?
Yeah, because when I was invited to create these exhibitions here, I immediately started to think about light and shadow, light and its dark side, and especially about modernity, late modernity, present times, as light festivals very often deal with architectural lighting and also development, city development, I mean. So it's sort of deals with the development as such in present times. So because of Jevgeni Zolotkos' former works that have been sort of read as pieces that deal with post-apocalyptic era, or pieces that deal with sort of failed modernities, maybe like some totalitarian regime that has broken apart and so on. So because of these past works of Jevgeni, I went to him and asked if he has ideas in this context and if he has something to say about my first idea of talking about our modernity here in Eastern Europe, which is nowadays like a post-socialist space, but it still holds the heritage of alter modernity. In global sense, Soviet Union was an attempt to create an alter modernity to Western modernity and be even more progressive, and it failed. So Jevgeni's past works had been sort of related with this kind of failure of our previous system. And my idea was to ask him if he has something to say in present context about our current modernity. And then it started this kind of process that we witness here in this and the other exhibition.
But Jevgeni, in this sense, is kind of let's say for me it feels that when he is kind of, I'm not even sure whether it's correct to say criticizing modernity, but when he's criticizing the society or the world he's living in, then it has a very kind of religious approach in it, as we can see also here, that it's literally a basilic, and so I was also starting to wonder about it's the promised light, it's how to get salvation and so on. So I perceive Jevgeni as as literary, dealing with some. Let's say for him the alternative to modernity is literally reaching back to kind of very like orthodox and traditional Christianity in a way.
I'm not sure about it, but if this desire exists, then this desire is found especially from the core of modernity. If we witness around in Europe, currently we see this kind of emergence of traditionalism, emergence of being religious, somehow going back to the roots in all different kind of layers in the spectrum of politics. I think it is a general attempt for the modernity to either destroy itself, hold itself back, or balance itself, or reinvent itself. Because Christianity is the core of modernity. And in the case of this kind of universalist term modernity, this refers to only one small part of the world that has, let's say, colonized the rest of the planet and made it according to its rules.
Now, another topic that you kind of referred to in some previous comments you just made while I was talking to you, and what you also, for example, mentioned in one of the comments you made on Facebook, you referred to that Yevgeni's while talking about Yevgeni's work, there is a question always how to talk about it, or it inevitably raises the question, what are the adequate things to talk about when one talks about Yevgeni's work? And when we look at the existing reception, like what part of it is adequate and da. So one of the problems or questions that you referred to was that we should talk about masculinity in the context of Yevgeni's work. Would you elaborate on that line a bit?
Well, in fact, the artist himself, Jevgeni Zolotkos, has told a quite precise story about this installation, that this is based on a real-life story, something that happened to a person in his childhood, and this is sort of the roots of this work that we should maybe take into consideration, but we shouldn't let it also dominate what Yevgeni used to do previously in previous years and so on. But exactly this story we can also witness here, and this refers to a drunken father trying to teach his son how to drive, and we can see on 3 screens basically the act of a young boy being behind the wheel and driving inside of darkness, and then this video, as we see in the background, there is a wooden structure that refers to some kind of backside of an architectural facade, or to be more precise, as the artist himself said, it is the backside of an iconostasis from Orthodox Church, a place where people rarely are allowed to go, and like this kind of a place where the content of not just the content, but this kind of liturgical atmosphere of being religious is being sort of prepared, or at least an atheistical or post-atheistical viewpoint to religion is what opens, I think, here. This kind of rational mind, we are talking now also about historical rationality, which emerged with the era of enlightenment, but not just this short era. I think it started with the colonization of America and this kind of emergence of anthropocentrism and the centrality of human rational mind. So all these kind of references emerge with this iconostasis and the backside. So this is how in late modernity kind of people like to think that their eyes penetrate the backside of icons, the backside of holiness, the backside of facades. They see everything through, and this atmosphere with these pillars, this is kind of what can be maybe even witnessed in this kind of church of rationality. because also Yevgeni uses a lot of construction materials in his works. Also previously, a lot we know him by actually this gray mass produced by papers. They are mostly newspapers, media, but I mean, if you don't witness any media here, then it is only one small reference that it can be considered a mass of text or whatever, because it was once, when he used this material, it was once translated as sort of a mass of information or kind of post-semiotical text. But if we look, maybe we see some fragments of text, but at first it could also be read that it is an isolation material, to isolate something, you know? So we should also think what is the semiotics of isolation in the world of construction materials.
Let's see, I appreciate him for approaching the human as something very kind of unintelligent. Like he doesn't try to speak to, you know, his solution also kind of seems to be like the characters seem to be rather, you know, brutal and primitive in their approach, and the solution which he kind of looks for is also kind of, you know, it's in this sense it is kind of post-intellectual.
Yeah, but you know, what is intellectual? If in case we are looking for intelligent people in Yevgeni's work, we are looking for some kind of facades, and we are looking for some kind of symbols or some key elements. Aha, this is intelligent, and then aha, this is not, you know. So it's about symbols, and I think, and also, as you said, he doesn't go into direct symbols of Christianity. For him, religion is always about, let's say, life as such, which is actually the point of religion, which is like humans' relation with the universe, humans' kind of a point of departure to be connected with the life inside of the human and outside and in between. So I think he touches the core of being religious, and as he also touches masculinity or deals with masculinity here, I think this is somehow much direct way of describing late modernity, or not just describing, but worrying about it or being in relation with it, than playing with big symbols like, look, this is the religious space, the world is falling apart, the global West is kind of losing its high position in the global hierarchy. You know, Spengler, all these kind of big white males who have been describing the collapse of the West for centuries already. So I think masculinity is the main player in describing the world, because the world has been dominated by males, and especially white males. And I think it wouldn't make Yevgeni's works less masculine if he would depict women, because he's a male artist. A man says his word. He's a man, basically. He cannot escape his body. And I think it is quite, in a good sense, if he approaches maybe these kind of masculinities which are very much in common in East Europe, let's say, and especially in this location. Men who very often, as it is widely known, who very often are related with alcohol. Men who spend their lives mostly on being exploited as labor. Very often nowadays here in Estonia, they work in Finland as construction workers. It is like a typical male job. And here we see a lot of construction materials. And we see even this, the second row of pillars being kind of created from construction materials, you know, and isolation materials. So therefore it is, you know, maybe not just the Christianic world collapsing, but maybe it is the attempt of a desperate male to re-establish the Christianic world, to re-establish the structure that is absent in his life, and to try to create, you know, the religious space and the structure with this kind of materials that describe him the most, because he is in contact with this every day. And this surrounds us every day. Almost all of us, if we live in new buildings, let's say, all of us are surrounded with this kind of material. So this is our present reality nowadays. And I think the original construction material in churches, what do we have to do with this at all nowadays? Maybe we go to church on Sundays, but most of us almost never go to church. So what is church about? Church is about media. Another reference point pops up here, because as Jevgeni also says, this material here is comes from Finnish newspapers. So it might be Finnish language, although I don't have myself evidence that it is really so, but religion and all these problems that we here have been discussing, it exists in media mostly. And this space here, whatever structure it has, the main context where this space is opened up or discussed is the media, contemporary art, YouTube, and so on. So I think there is a lot of hallucinations we can see here, and I think a good artwork is defined by being capable of providing a lot of meanings, a lot of discussions, a lot of hallucinations even. I think this is a very good art piece for that reason.
So he, as you said, he's dealing with kind of being with the problem of being a man. So his masculinity is really about, it's about, father teaching you how to thrive, and which in my sense, in the whole aesthetics, how it is shown and so on, it feels to me totally like Christ complaining to his father about, why I have to suffer like that. And I always thought it's kind of Jevgeni's, when I look at Jevgeni's work, then I tend to interpret it as his own kind of religious, I don't know how to say, in a way it's suffering for the cause of the world. I have to suffer because God made me suffer, and there is this feeling of being the chosen one. I'm this one who has to suffer, but at the same time, your interpretation gives it a much more nicer reach in this, that no, we all have to suffer.
No, I mean, it's not that we all have to suffer, but it's maybe how to articulate the cause of the suffering, if it is a father behind it, father on earth, or father in the sky, or father in the governmental office building, or father in your employer's office, and then so on. So I think in order to describe late modernity and capitalism, I think at least artist contexts should, I think, address much more not just ideas but bodies. Not just minds, but physical and social bodies, which divide us people into women and men and so on, into this kind of hierarchies. I think we need to approach the body level. And because everybody is a body in this system, even the father in the governmental office is a body like us. And if we criticize or describe masculinity, I think we also describe and criticize the existing ideology and the order outside.
Yeah, that's a good point, because my next question would have been about, if we kind of approach critically the fact that the world has been described by men and as a very masculine thing, then I don't think a good solution is to just turn it around.
Turn it around and give it to women?
Yeah, that this kind of a description of the world, it doesn't, I don't see there the solution.
Because if we speak about, I think, egalitarianism in the context of an oppressive world order, then, I mean, it's just about how to divide the mechanisms of oppression. And this is not, I think, what I'm trying to say here. And this is also not my understanding of feminism as being something about women. But I think feminism, if you refer to this, is equally related with women and also men, I think, because what is going on between men and women is also going on between women and between men also. Relations between men that emerge from father and son and all kind of brotherhood, all these kind of things described and criticized by the domain of feminism is extremely present in this context. And I think we need to talk much more about, if you remember last summer, this Serbian curator, Marko Stamenkovic, visited Tallinn and gave a lecture in Contemporary Art Center. He used quite a good term for this that I wanted to say. It is intermasculine intimacy. It means that the notion of privacy, but also relation to other men between males. Yeah, what is going on between men? If it doesn't need to be like labeled as homosexual or heterosexual, or so on. But what is going on between men as such, and it's a lot related with religion. It's a lot related with issues of labor, work, education, and so on.
Okay, but no, how to say, when we come to this, I don't think crucial. We come to this impossible moment, or this thing that is always a problem with the critical theory, and which I think when we talk about the history of philosophy and at some point there has to be a turn of what will be the thing that will be first criticized in the context of critical theory is the question of the positive program in a way. And when we look at Jevgeni's installation, then the positive program is this belief in some kind of innocence. That his whole the topic about genealogy, the topic about father and son, it has to do that you're still born in a way innocent. Or okay, the fact of being born makes you already a sinner, but there is this hope for this Christ kind of being born without a sin and then not dying, but going to heaven, like literary. But in a previous comment when we talked with each other, then you made a good. I think you put it very well, and if I now reconstruct the thing that you said correctly, then the point was something like that the positive program is the criticism itself?
I think it's not a positive or negative program, but it's a program, definitely. But I think, talking about hope, and if hope is a positive program, because in the other video of this installation, we see an empty lake without a horizon, basically, and a small boy running out of it and being quite happy. But he's completely alone in this context, but he seems very happy with himself and so on. So, and if we think that a positive program, there might be a hope for the next generations. We can also think that, what is hope then? Hope is, if we talk about the corrupted system, which is addressed here, hope is kind of the seed of this corrupted system to repeat itself, to produce more babies, to produce more new people who would come, enter the same system, have the same childhood, and repeat everything. So it is programmed. The system always, any kind of system always functions by multiplying itself. I don't know what is the positive program, and I think here, you cannot find this in this exhibition. I think an artist saying what is the positive program, I think very positive is to talk about these things that we have been talking about, and to maybe repeat your, let's say, childhood experience of your father teaching you how to drive, to repeat it in other contexts than in real life on your own son, let's say.
Yeah, no, what I meant with the positive program was more like to avoid nihilism, or to avoid the accusation of being just nihilistic. But in this sense, I totally agree with your last words. Quoting a living classic, then don't act, just think.
Yeah, I agree with nihilism, but don't act, just think, also possible.